I'll be honest with you guys. I was going to start our video today by me walking on stage, taking a long sip of my drink. And then I was going to say, I don't want to do this. Let's just have comic class outside today. And then I was going to spend half an hour just filming my dog playing catch in the park. But we are currently in the middle of a massive thunderstorm. I'm talking the size of the entire state, and it's taking its time rolling on through here. So even God wants me to talk about this. Fine. So yes, Heroes in Crisis finally wrapped up today at issue number 7, issue number 8, issue number 9. And when issue number 1 of this came out, I wasn't very happy about it. I said that I saw good ideas in here, and I saw good intentions in here. And I saw something that could have been a pretty intriguing mystery in there. But they came in here and did something so perplexing at the beginning of it that I honestly had to wonder if it was even real. Because it felt like just massively shooting oneself in the foot to come in here and have a murder mystery revolving around a character who was incredibly important to a much larger story that was also building outside of this event, and many fans had been asking for this character to return, and now they returned as part of this big ongoing story that had everyone talking, and you came in here in a separate story and killed them off. Yeah, it just didn't make sense to me. And I said, okay, it feels like this might involve some time travel stuff since we got Booster Gold in there to come in here and basically fix all this. And, you know, it did end up involving some time travel stuff in here. But I wouldn't say it fixed all that stuff. Now, let me just go ahead and say, I know a lot of people out there have been looking forward to this video. Because you guys have been telling me on Twitter and Twitch nonstop that you are looking forward to this video. Because you guys like it when I rant about stuff. And ooh, man, it's been a while since I ranted about anything in comics. I've been Mr. Positive over the past couple months about everything in the world of comics. But ooh, you've been waiting. You've been waiting on me coming back and getting mad about something. I'm not going to rant about this. I'm not. And it's for a couple of reasons I'm not going to rant about this. The first reason I'm not going to rant about this is because I see the intentions in here. And in all honesty, I think this book had good intentions. Not the higher-ups at DC who really have a thing for Wally West and really wanted to get him out of the picture. No, those are bad intentions. But I mean specifically Tom King wanting to craft a message about survivors coming together and understanding that they're not alone. The intention behind that is a very good thing, and it's hard for me to really be angry at something that has a very positive intention behind it. If that intention gets completely 100% muddled up, yes, I can be angry about that. And it did in here. But I can't really rant about it when I have to come in here and keep pointing out, listen man, there was an idea here. There was something good at the core of this. It just ran into several problems along the way. The other reason why I'm not going to rant is because I just don't care. I really just do not care at this point with this book. So let's stop the Donkey Kong jungle theme that we always use when I go on a rant. That's completely inappropriate right now. What's a video game song that really just encapsulates a feeling of apathy and being beaten down? That'll do. So I will go into more detail about what I mean when I say I don't care and what I mean when I say I think that there were good intentions here when I talk about what I felt were positives about this book, and when I go into what I think were the negatives with this book. But there is a third reason why I'm not going to go on a rant about this, and it is simply that there is way too much negativity in the pop culture community on YouTube. And yes, every now and again, I will come out here and I'll give a bad review to a movie. I'll go on and I'll be angry about something, because I'm not saying that you shouldn't show anger about stuff. I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel negative ways about something. That's completely healthy in order to get out negative feelings sometimes. Sometimes. And that's the problem. There is way too much negativity when it comes to the pop culture community on YouTube right now. And listen, sometimes I look out there and I don't want to add to any of that. I really don't. I mean, especially after you have seen how much negativity Tom King has gotten for this story. Tom King came out on Twitter and he basically said, guys, I'm just tired of getting death threats over this book. Who in their right mind was doing that? You guys want me to go on a rant about something? I'll go on a rant about that. What is wrong with you? Thinking that it is okay to send threats like that to somebody because they wrote a fictional character in a way that you didn't appreciate. And I know that these fictional characters are very important to a lot of people out there. I mean, for God's sakes, I've been running a YouTube channel about this stuff for years now. You think I don't realize the importance of fictional characters to people in the real world? I understand that the stories and the adventures and the lessons of these characters have gone on to influence many people out there in the real world. It has helped many of you through your darkest times. It has helped many of you overcome a lot of personal issues that you have had in life. But I got news for you. Those heroes that you look up to so much, do you think that they would approve of you sending death threats over a comic book? I don't think so. So yeah, I don't want to get too angry about this book, because there's too much anger already out there. And it's not good to keep adding on to that. There's so many people out there on YouTube who just want to keep people angry at all times, because anger can be addictive. And they realize that if they can keep you angry at all times, then you gotta keep coming back to them for that hit. They don't actually care about the stuff they're keeping you angry about, but they want to keep you angry so you keep coming back to them. And that's not healthy. It is not good to build a fan base based around anger. That's not a positive thing. It is not going to work out for anyone in the long run. So yeah, I don't want to add to that. And I know there's going to be people out there who say, well, isn't it healthy to let anger out every now and again? Yes, it can be. It's not good to keep all that stuff just pent up inside you. It is good to let anger out every now and again. You know what else is healthy for you? Fire. Cooks your food, provides you with heat. Hell, you can even just light a scented candle with it. That candle will provide you with a smell that awakens some endorphins in the back of your brain, makes you feel all good. Oh, that's great. Yeah, everybody, it's kind of nice to just light a scented candle every now and again. But if I want to light a scented candle and my apartment is engulfed in flames, the last thing that I need to add to that room right now is more fire. So yes, if you want to rant, that was it. Calm the fudge down. That's your rant for the day. There, you had it. However, this book does have problems, and they are problems that do indeed need to be addressed, because they are massive things that are going to affect very beloved characters in the DC universe, and perhaps the DC universe as a whole. Maybe. I will get back to what I mean by that in just a second. So we do have to talk about that. However, before we get into that, as I said, it is not healthy to go out there when the entire room is engulfed in flames and add more fire to it. So that is why I want every single person out there watching this video, before you decide to get really mad about this book, before you decide to go and post a comment somewhere talking about how much you hate this thing, before you decide to go online and watch some other video where someone just rants and raves and waves their hands around about how bad this thing is, I want you to stop, go online, find a creator that you like. Find someone who has done stuff that you have enjoyed, and just send them a message and say, hey, I really like this thing you did. Not, I really like what you do except for this thing. No, not that. Not, I really like this thing you did, but I thought you could have done... No, not that. We are just going to spread some positivity today. So go out there, Find a creator. It can be someone in the comic industry, someone in the movie industry, someone in the video game industry, someone who just makes really cool art online, someone who makes YouTube videos. Not me, this is not a self-promotion thing. I want you to go and find other people out there. Go and find other people out there and just say, hey, I really like this thing you did. Go and find something they did and post a positive comment on it. Just spread at least one piece of positivity today before you decide to get angry about something. That is it. That is your homework for today from the professor. Done. Got it? Cool. Alright, let's go ahead and talk about this thing. Now, quick summation about what this series is about. It was about a safe house where superheroes could go to basically talk about the massive pressure that they are experiencing, to talk about the horrible things that they have had to experience, to basically try and seek help for all the stuff that is plaguing them. And Tom King, the writer of this book, he used to work as a CIA operative over in Iraq, and one of his jobs over there was training other soldiers over there. So he knows a lot about soldiers who have to deal with the weight of being a soldier, with the things that they've seen, with the things that they've experienced, and it was very clear this was all meant to be a metaphor for that. And just to skip ahead a little bit, at the end of this thing, at the very end, the big lesson was that Wally West felt like no one out there could understand what he was going through. He felt no one out there was suffering the way that he was, so he felt completely alone in his struggles. So he used his super speed to find all the confession tapes of all the other heroes who had come to this sanctuary, and it's never really explained how exactly that works, because they said that after someone recorded a confession, it was then scattered up and basically just thrown to the wind so that no one could ever piece it together and find out this very private confession that this hero had made. But I don't know how you do that with digital recordings. I don't know how you just scatter that. That would imply that they still needed that footage, so they didn't just want to delete it. They still need it to exist in some way that could possibly be reassembled. I don't know. That part was very confusing to me. But he goes and he does something that they say would take someone 1,000,000 years to do, and because he's the Flash, he does it in 5 seconds. And he just sees all these recordings of all these other heroes talking about how they have suffered. And he can't deal with this experience. He can't deal with seeing everything that has happened to all these people and knowing that he didn't trust them when he really should have trusted them, and that made him feel even worse. And it caused him to drop his guard as he basically sort of had a panic attack, and it caused the Speed Force to explode out of him and murder all the other heroes at the sanctuary. So Wally West did it, but not intentionally. He didn't mean to get everyone killed there. And then he basically set it up to look like this was a murder, that it wasn't just an accident. And then he took all the footage he had acquired and he sent it to Lois Lane. And Lois Lane said, this is a story that does need to be talked about. We have all this footage of these heroes making confessions about the horrible things that have happened to them. That's something that I kind of need to talk about, especially because it ties into a murder. And people out there, they kind of want to know about this. And I'm a journalist, so sorry, Clark, we do kind of need to do this. So yeah, those confessions ended up getting leaked out there. And the big lesson of all this, just to jump ahead now to the end of all this, was that the reason why Wally did that, why he leaked that footage out there, is because the reason why he basically got as low as he did was because he didn't understand that other people out there were suffering like he was. And he thought if he could show the world how much these heroes were suffering, then people out there who were suffering would not feel like they were alone. And that needed to happen in order for the healing to start, as they said in this book. Now, when I mentioned that this book has good intentions, yes, the idea of showing that people who are suffering from PTSD or suffering from depression or other conditions that weigh on them this heavily, the idea of letting people out there know you are not alone with what you are suffering with, that is a very positive message. Letting people out there who are at their lowest know you are not alone and it is good to seek help. That's a beautiful message. That is a message that should exist out there. And we should be telling that kind of thing in these stories. However, the execution is really bad in this book. And I hate that you can have a message that feels like it's the most we should be talking about this message that a comic has ever told. And you can just drop the ball this hard on it. Because this book, yes, it's supposed to be about Wally dealing with the horrible stuff going on in his life and then realizing I can go to other people and talk to them about this. But what we got was a murder mystery for 8 issues and then resolution at the end that tries to kind of tie that up with a positive message. And again, I hate saying this because the message is good in this book. It is good to tell people out there that it's okay to seek help. That is a positive message. But you can't come in here with a story that is this unbalanced. You can't come in here with a story where you don't even really cover any of that until the very end after we have just gone through all this stuff about maybe I murdered these people. I don't know who really murdered these people. We have to find the true killers of these people. And then the whole thing about him spreading the stuff that happened at Sanctuary to the news, that almost feels like a betrayal to me. It is a positive to come in here and share your story so that other people out there can learn from that story. And in the very last issue, you've been getting these confessions from the heroes who have been at Sanctuary. You've been getting that throughout this entire series. But in the last issue, you see numerous other heroes who you have never seen before making their confession tapes at Sanctuary. And it's basically kind of revealed at the end, these are all the new people who have started coming here. Because now they know it's okay, thanks to Wally letting them know that you're not alone. So he ended up helping all these other people with that. And that's a very great thing to have in the last issue. That's a great thing to put in there at the very end. To show the positive effect of letting other people out there know that you are not alone and that you can come and talk to other people about this. That is a great thing to put at the end of all this. But again, one issue does not fix 8 other issues of not really talking about this. And what's really bizarre to me is that this thing was supposed to be 7 issues and it got extended not once but twice. And I looked at this and I went, I have no idea why this could have been extended. I have no idea why this thing went on for as long as it went on. And it feels like stretching this out for 2 more issues hurt this thing. Because it was 2 more issues of us not dealing with what the main story of this actually should have been. This should have been a story about heroes actually coming together and actually learning how to heal with each other. And you would get a tiny dash of that here, there, every now and again. But it was so rare in this book. It was so rare until the very end. And then it was the entire thing. And it was like they were turning to you and saying, yes, that's what it was all about. It's like, no, it was about these characters dying and us trying to figure out who was the real killer in all of this. And it feels almost like all that buildup was just forgotten. And I don't mean all that buildup as in we didn't get an answer. We got an answer to what happened. But I mean, in terms of tone, the tone that we got for the previous couple issues really doesn't go anywhere at the end of all this. The tone of the previous couple issues feels like it didn't exist. Because this is a completely different tone in this issue. And the fact that it has such, and I don't want to say lighthearted tone in the last issue because it's not lighthearted. They're trying to prevent Wally from committing suicide in this last issue. But the fact that the end of this is a tone of healing. A tone of, no, we're all in this together. I mentioned that Tom King was making this very clearly a metaphor for soldiers who have suffered through traumatic experiences. At the end of this, Booster Gold is saying that we're brothers and sisters. Like, he's actually using the terminology that soldiers use amongst themselves in here. It's very clear what he's trying to say at this. Yeah, that is a positive thing to have happening here at the end, but it almost feels like, so we're just going to forget that a whole bunch of people are dead. We're just going to forget that so many people died in this. Because at the end of this, it is supposed to be about Wally. It's okay. You're not alone in this. Also, Roy Harper is dead because you murdered him. Like, it doesn't feel like that has any weight here in the last issue. And many of the heroes who died in this, they were just one-off characters. They were characters that everyone had forgotten about. But Roy Harper was a major character. He was a huge deal. And so many of the characters in here get like that one issue to come in here and kind of spotlight why they're there, to have them talk and get inside their head. But these are such small characters. Roy Harper is a way bigger character than all of them, and it feels almost like he gets less time than all the other characters. Maybe I just felt like he deserved more time, that's why it feels like he got less time than the other characters, but it really feels like the biggest characters that you had die in this entire series got the least amount of time here at the end as their sort of send-off, I guess. And I really hate going into this, but when you think about the Flash in terms of like, oh, it's this supernatural comic book character, he's got this magical speed force thing going into him, and when you think of it like that, and you think about how that is what ended up killing these people, it wasn't really Wally, it was all just one big mistake, then, okay, you can think of it one way. But as I said, this is all supposed to be a metaphor for soldiers who are dealing with stuff. And again, there are moments where that's done wonderfully. There's the moment after all these videos have gone out there and they have gone public, and Superman has to get up there and makes a speech about how heroes are now being viewed because people know that they have emotional trauma that they are carrying with them at all times. That thing, it was, I mean, you could just replace the word heroes with soldiers in there. And it was just Tom King making a speech about soldiers having to deal with these issues. And I honestly thought the Superman speech in there was great. I felt that that was done incredibly well because I could get that personal connection. I could feel what Tom King was trying to say. And yeah, it was really moving in that moment. But, as I said, when you go to the premise of all this, to the first issue, to the setup of this event, that it was a hero ended up accidentally killing a bunch of other heroes because he got overwhelmed by what he had experienced. The moment that you take that from the comic world and turn into the real world metaphor that they're trying to go with this, it really becomes, it feels kind of problematic to me. I don't know the exact way to put it into terms, which is one of the reasons I love the term problematic, because it applies to just when you know something's messed up but you can't put it into words. It feels almost tone deaf, I guess is the best way that I want to go with it. Because it feels like they're trying to have their cake and eat it too at that moment. Wow, now all of a sudden I have tons of terms to throw out here. Because it feels like they want that to be, oh, here's the big mystery superhero thing, and then the answer is something that can really only exist with the superhero things, but everything else in here is them so hard, just trying so hard to turn to you and say, heroes, metaphor for real life soldiers. That then when you try and apply it onto that, it becomes really disturbing. It really does. I might cut this whole part out right now because, again, I don't think that that was his intention. I don't think that that was his intention. And I don't want to come in here and say that that was his intention to create something to create a scenario that disturbing. I don't. But I don't think he realized that he kind of did create that in this book. That's kind of my problem with a lot of this book. The intention in there, the message they want to give, it's great. But they didn't know the way to deliver it without creating several problems. And I've mentioned this several times before, but Wally West is my favorite DC hero. And I'm sure that a lot of people out there expect me to be very mad about what happened in here. That at the end of this, Wally West, he goes to jail and he decides, I'm going to keep fighting, even though I'm at my lowest right now, but I'm gonna keep fighting. I know people out there are going to think, well, he ended up murdering a bunch of people, and now he's going to prison. This really, I've seen people use the phrase character assassination on this. And I talk about this a lot. I talk about this a lot with previous other events where you come in here and you do stuff with characters that people loved that now makes people feel completely different about them. I'm trying to be real nice on this. And I don't really want to come in here and use any of that terminology, because that was the lesson of this entire book. The lesson of this entire book was, yes, those big, bright, shining heroes that you see, they're dealing with very personal stuff. They're dealing with issues from their past. They're dealing with traumatic events that stick with them at all times. But that doesn't mean that they're still not the heroes that you care about. It doesn't mean that they are less than what you thought of them before. That was the lesson of all of this. And I feel like if you come in here at the end after all the horrible things that happened with Wally, and you say something like it's character assassination, you're kind of going against what the lesson of this book is. And as I said, it's a lesson that kind of should be told. It's a lesson that they kind of should talk about in here. Especially when you think about the real world metaphors that they are very much trying to draw comparisons between. So I don't want to come in here and say something like, oh, they ruined Wally West, because the lesson of this book is no matter how dark things get for this character, they're not ruined. They're still the people that you care about. But I can just see so many other ways that they could have delivered that message better than this. And again, the fact that we know that Dan DiDio hates Wally West and has constantly tried to kill him off several times before, it doesn't help. It doesn't help that we can clearly look at this and go, dude, I know what's going on behind the scenes at this. So that's not helping. But yeah, I do think that it's wrong to come in here and say something like they've ruined this character, when the entire moral of this story was, no matter what happens to them or what they're dealing with, they're not ruined as long as they keep fighting, as long as they're still the people that you cared about. But again, I can just see so many other ways that this could have been done better. And the number one way is the fact that Wally came in there and he took all these private, personal messages that these heroes had, and without their consent, shared it to the entire world. Yeah, that's kind of messed up. And again, I understand the message. The message is, it's good for people out there to know that you're not the only one suffering. I understand that. But you didn't get their approval on this. You didn't go to them and talk to them about sharing this and why it's important for other people out there to know this. You completely just betrayed them. You betrayed their trust by sharing this to everyone out there. If Wally had seen the footage of everyone else out there talking about this, and it made him realize that he wasn't alone and that he needed to know that message earlier, so other people need to know that message. If he had then gone to the news, maybe to, I don't know, Linda, the news anchor who was his wife and he had been trying to look for a reason to reestablish a connection with, I don't know, just throwing it out there. But if he had gone to her and said, I want to tell my story, and he told the story of how much he was suffering, and then he was just trying to convince other heroes to step forward. Like, maybe if the story of this wasn't, I murdered everyone at the safe house, I murdered everyone in our trauma anonymous group. I don't know the exact term that you want to use for a direct comparison here. But maybe if the story wasn't, I accidentally murdered all of my friends and all the other heroes who were trying to help me. And the story was, I now realize why it's important for us to share this. And it was him just trying to convince the other people to come forward and share their stories. It would have still had the same message, but we wouldn't have had to have watched, characters being murdered. Again, now we're getting to that point where it's me writing the story that I would want to see, and I hate when people do that, so I apologize for coming in here and doing that, but I'm just trying to say, it really feels like there were way better ways to get this message out there, in a way that had that be the tone of this entire thing, because all you can think about is how many people out there needed to hear this message, needed to hear the message that you're not alone, that it is okay to come forward with your stories. It is okay to share with other people. It is okay to talk to other people about this. It is okay to get help. I keep thinking about all the people out there who needed to hear that message, who did not stick around till issue number 9, because they opened this thing up, saw Wally West and Roy Harper dead right there, and they just said, I don't want to read anything else in this book. I keep thinking about all the people who needed to hear that message, who just tuned out after issue number 1. Because that was so clearly not the lesson of this book. I mean, just think about the fact that if you want to let people know that it's okay to come forward and share your stories, how is murdering all of them? How is murdering all the people seeking help? How is that going to give them that message? It really is. Oh, God. Okay. I'm sorry. I'm starting to get off. Here. Okay. Need to pump the brakes for a moment on this. Because it's just, again, I don't want to be mad at this. Because I understand what the message of this was. And it's a beautiful message. But it's not delivered well. And I think that the devil is in the delivery. It is in how you get the message across. By the way, before anybody in the comments comes in here and says, actually, the phrase is the devil's in the details. I know, it's a twist on phrase, whatever. You know what I really wish that they had done with this book? And this is, I promise you, this is not me coming in here and going, well, they should have written it like that. I kind of already fell into that earlier today, and I apologize for that. But what I wish they had done with this book is, I've mentioned, DC has this new line of books, Black Label. And stuff that doesn't exist within the main continuity. It's more just whatever story these writers want to tell, but they do have more of a mature tone to them. And because they don't exist within continuity, they don't have to worry about following any of the rules or anything that had been established in any of the other books. And they kind of just let these creators just go wild and do what they want in these series. I kind of wish that this had been like a 6-issue long story, like even less than it was originally intended. You get rid of all the murder mystery stuff going on in there, and you just have this book be a Black Label book. And it be Tom King basically doing what he very clearly wanted to do with this story. Just make it a story about people healing, about people coming together and realizing that they're not alone and they can actually talk about the problems that they have. And they could probably get even deeper if they did it as a Black Label book, because then you wouldn't have to worry about making this in any way, shape, or form safe for all ages. Not saying that this is safe for all ages, but it is part of the main DC line of books, so it does have to be tapped down from how extreme you could get with some of these issues. So I feel like if he had made this a Black Label book, and it was just heroes talking at a group about their issues and coming together and realizing it's okay to share and it's okay to seek help and that's how you heal amongst each other, I think that this could have been something great, because in many ways that's kind of what Mr. Miracle was. Mr. Miracle was actually supposed to be part of the Black Label line of books, but it came out before they ended up launching that line. So yeah, we've seen that when Tom King is kind of allowed to do what he wants with these characters, and he doesn't have to make it a quote-unquote event, but instead he can just make it a thing about a character just sort of exploring their own personal crises, he can do something great, because Mr. Miracle did that exact thing, and it was great. But no matter what happened in here, they could have still done everything where Wally ended up going to prison because he shared all of these secrets. It wouldn't be in the main continuity, so he wouldn't have to worry about any of that. He could really have taken his time to really delve in deep with the personal issues of these characters if it had been a Black Label book, but it's part of the main continuity. And that kind of brings me to the second thing that I said, where I said, I just don't care anymore. And I'm not saying that to be like dramatic. I'm not coming in here to try and make some big like cringy title on YouTube. I'm not going to title this video, I don't care about DC anymore, and then it has my face up here at the front. Just, I'm not going to do that. That's not the purpose of this. But I feel like DC has a couple of problems, and this issue showed off one in particular that has really kind of been hitting me hard over the past year at DC, which is that I don't feel like anything at DC really has weight to it anymore. And the reason why I say that is because DC came in here with the New 52, and they got rid of everything, and they had this whole new universe there with very loosely defined borders about what was and was not actually happening in this universe. Yeah, it was not all that well thought out, and we've talked about that before. But then they came in here with Rebirth, and they said, we know what's been missing, we know what we screwed up, we're going to bring all that stuff back. But Rebirth also had rules to it. Rebirth came in here, and it basically said, okay, This has happened. This has not happened. This has happened. This has not happened. And the things that have not happened, those are problems that they have not happened. We need to deal with all that stuff. And they set up this path. Rebirth gave them a roadmap to follow and say, okay, we're going to slowly introduce this. We're going to slowly introduce that. We're going to go from this thing to this thing. We're going to slowly rebuild all of this. And I don't know if it's Doomsday Clock just being delayed too much. I don't know if it's the fact that Jeff Johns no longer has really any kind of oversight at DC Comics anymore, and instead he's now back to just being like a regular writer there. And I don't know if it's the fact that Jeff Johns is the guy who came in here and was like, okay, I know how to fix all this, just follow my instructions on this. And now he's not really doing that anymore, and instead it's back to Dan DiDio and Jim Lee, the guys who came in here with the New 52, and just like, screw it, throw everything out of the way. Because Dan DiDio and Jim Lee, they also came in there with Convergence. And at the end of Convergence, they basically said, everything happened. And I looked at that and went, that doesn't make sense. You can't just come in here and go, everything happened, do whatever you want, because some things that happen go against other things that happened, and certain storylines we've been following don't work if everything happened. You can't just say everything happened. And it feels like over the past year, or maybe not even the full past year, but like 8 months or so, I'd say, it's really shocked me how much of DC has kind of just been, screw it, whatever. Because I've seen so many things at DC just coming in here and just going, well, that happened, and that happened, and that happened, and that happened. And I'm like, 3 of the that happened things you just listed go completely against the stuff that has been built up in the other stuff that we are reading right now. I remember when Scott Snyder's Justice League started. It started with them talking about the Hall of Justice and saying, well, we wanted to know what to include. And we decided to include everything. And I feel like that was them making a message about how they wanted to build this Justice League. But then it showed like their trophy stuff, and it showed all the different members of the Justice League. I just looked at that and went, so is the stuff about the Justice League being founded 5 years ago still accurate? Has it still always been these couple members? I guess it hasn't always been these couple members. I guess that's not a thing anymore. But then shouldn't you come in here and tell us who has and has not been a member? And I know that in the Superman books, they came in here and they did a storyline with Mr. Mixie's Spitlick. It feels weird to say such a silly name after trying to be so serious this entire episode. But they did a whole event with that where he ended up merging the old Superman continuity with the new one. And I understand that by doing that, they opened it up to all these new possibilities. They opened it up to all the different things that could have and could have not happened to these characters. But they never really came in there and explained what did and did not happen to these characters. They came in here and explained the new history of Superman. But that was it. And they still left a lot of stuff blank in there so that way it would fit into the New 52 continuity. So yeah, there's still massive patches of what did happen and what did not happen. And in this book, in particular, in Heroes in Crisis, there's so many times in here in which you've got heroes giving confessions, and I'm looking at that like, I know what you're talking about. That didn't happen in this new continuity that we're in. Like, there's moments in which Lagoon Boy is in there, and he's talking about what happened in Titans East. This, like, one-shot that they did, where they set up this new Titans East team. I was like, oh, that's cool. And then they murdered all of them at the end of that, because there's a theme going with DC over the past couple of years. But they just murdered all of them, and he's talking about that event, and I kept looking at that and going, that doesn't work with the continuity that we built up now in this new Rebirth world. And then you've got, like, Commander Steel in there. And he's talking about stuff that happened on the Justice League Detroit team. And I was looking at that like, did the Justice League Detroit still happen? What's happening with that? And it's not just this book. It's so many other books out there. Like, they've been setting up this whole mystery involving Connor Kent over in James Tynion's Detective Comics, which I know that was a while back. But they set all that up. And then they had Impulse finally return in the pages of Flash. And I was looking at that like, oh man, what's going to happen when Impulse meets up with these other characters? What's going to happen when he interacts with Tim Drake again? We never saw that. We got Young Justice number 1, and in Young Justice number 1, Tim Drake now has memories of Connor Kent where he didn't have them before, and he just knows Bart Impulse. He just knows Bart Allen Impulse. Like, that's all there. The history is all there. And I do know that in later issues they came in there and they explained how Tim Drake now knows all this stuff, but you can't give me the emotional weight after the emotional punch. You have to give me the weight before the impact. And it really went backwards on that one, and that's a lot of what I've been seeing from things over at DC recently, is that it really feels like Jeff Johns, he had a plan, and Jeff Johns is not in charge of that plan anymore. Now it's back to Dan DiDio and Jim Lee, the guys who are like, everything happened. That didn't, well, but if that happened, then this didn't happen, then, wait, hold on. I'm confused. And yeah, it really feels like if everything happened, then nothing's important. That's what I'm trying to say on this. If everything happened, then there's no rules to any of this. And if you don't have rules to how your stories are built, then there's no real emotional weight to when things do and do not happen. Like I said with that Young Justice. When Connor Kent showed up there at the end, I was like, okay, so Bart remembers him, but Tim talked about him earlier in the issue. Okay, well, maybe we'll get an explanation in the next issue of, nope, there's just a flashback to Connor Kent just existing. Okay. So that just was always there, and all this stuff about being a mystery about how he got forgotten. Okay, that's just, okay, no words. I have no words on this one, and if I have no words, then I don't really care about. Because DC is kind of treating its history right now like a big sandbox where they can just do whatever they want with it, then yeah, it's cool if you just want to see random things punching each other. If you just want to see the characters that you like standing next to each other, then that's fine. But yeah, I don't get any kind of impact anymore from this stuff because it's just whatever. Did this happen? Sure. Did that happen? Sure. But those two things don't go together. Sure. And I had a lot of problems with that in Heroes in Crisis because you would constantly get these heroes talking about the things that they've experienced, and I would think to myself, that would be really cool, except that I don't think that actually happened, but if it did happen now, then that means other things didn't happen, so it just doesn't matter to me anymore. And that's what I meant earlier on when I said this will have a big impact on characters, maybe. Because I keep thinking about a certain writer who I will not name because I do not want to spread any more hate for any writers out there. Remember, I'm trying to be more positive on this. But I keep thinking about a certain writer who used to work at Marvel for a while. And a big thing that he would do is he would just have stuff happen and then never touch on it ever again. He would set up storylines, never follow through with them. And he would constantly have characters who were dead just come back. Or he would constantly have characters who were on this very clear storyline just appear on a completely different storyline that went against that storyline. And I keep thinking, yeah, at the end of this, all these characters are dead. But looking at how DC is built right now, where whatever can happen, and I know some of the people working on DC books right now, I know all these characters could just pop back up for no reason. They could just reappear and be totally fine, with zero explanation to it. Roy Harper could reappear in Titans, and it would kind of be par for the course for the stuff I've been reading at DC over the past couple months. So yeah, it's only been like a year since I've been sensing this big change over at DC. So that's not like enough time for me to go, well, I'm completely done with DC. But it is enough for me at the moment to just go, I don't really care until all this stuff is kind of in order. Until you kind of have stuff set out again. It's very weird to me that Marvel is putting out a big book called The History of Marvel, and it's just following, like, from year to year, every single thing that's happened to all these characters and all the major events. And I keep thinking, yeah, that's really nice, that's a cool idea, but you're not the one who needs to do that right now. We need DC to put that out. And for all I know, maybe they did. Maybe it was in the back of a random issue that I didn't even read about. Maybe it was in a series that I stopped following because I thought, oh, this doesn't really have the impact on me. Yeah, maybe it is all there. But I don't see it. That's the thing. They might have this all mapped out perfectly, but I'm not seeing it. And if I can't see the emotional buildup, then the emotional punch has no weight to it. That's what I'm trying to say. This has been going on very long. I did not mean to get this serious about all of this stuff, but yeah, there's some stuff that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a while. And that's not to say that I don't like reading DC comics right now, but I'm reading weird DC comics right now, like Wonder Twins is great. Naomi is really good. You know, not stuff like the big things out there that should be having the weight of characters who have had journeys and stories that have been building for years and years and years and years. The ones that are really good right now are the whatever books, the books that are like, yeah, we had a cool idea and we put it out there. Those are the really cool books right now. Okay, so yeah, again, like with Wally right now, I can't be really mad about what they did to Wally right now because their entire universe is so just sort of all over the place at the moment that I know Wally could reappear and they could just sweep everything that happened here under the rug, never talk about it again, and Wally would just be back to normal. And again, I wouldn't be shocked. It's kind of what I've been seeing from several books recently. But I do know that people out there like that. I do know that there's a lot of people out there who that's what they want to read. They do want to read about anything and everything could possibly happen. They view that as spectacular. And you know what? That's perfectly cool. If that's what you like, that is 100% fine. That's one of the magics of comic books, is that anything and everything can happen in them. But it's not what I really want to read. And that's why I just can't be upset about this stuff. Because, yeah, man, Wally could be just fine in like 3 months. They could just completely forget all this stuff happened and never mention it again. So, those are my feelings about Heroes in Crisis and also about the current state of the DC Universe in general. It's something that I've been wanting to get off my chest for a while, and this might not have been the best place to do it, but this issue certainly leans into the feelings I've been having for a while now about all this stuff, so I apologize for going on for so long about this. I apologize for being this serious while surrounded by this much goofy crap. No one surrounded by this much goofy crap should ever be this serious. You want to talk about something that did not have tonal structure, that flowed from one thing to the next? This. Yeah, just totally mission failure on that one. But thank you guys very much for tuning in. Like I said, just go out there, find some creators, and just say something nice to them today. That's your homework. Just go out there and say you like this thing that this person did. Let them know that. Spread some love around, everybody. Just be nice. That's all I wanted to do. I'm not even gonna plug Twitter and Twitch or all that crap. But yeah, thank you guys very much for tuning in. Come back next time. Bye.